soul contracts manifest in four distinct forms, each serving unique purposes in our spiritual development. Understanding these categories helps you recognize which type of agreement you're experiencing and respond appropriately. Have you ever felt like you're living the same day over and over again? Like you're trapped in an invisible cage, repeating the same patterns, attracting the same types of people, facing the same challenges no matter how hard you try to change? You're not going crazy. You're experiencing something profound that connects to the very fabric of your soul's journey. This phenomenon affects millions of people who feel stuck in repetitive cycles, whether in relationships, career patterns, or personal struggles. Understanding the spiritual mechanics behind these loops can transform frustration into purposeful growth. In the next 40 minutes, you'll discover how soul contracts, agreements made before birth, create these repetitive experiences for your spiritual evolution. You'll learn to recognize these patterns, understand their deeper purpose, and most importantly, how to transform them into conscious growth rather than unconscious suffering. Chapter 1. The Mystery of Soul Contracts. Sarah couldn't understand why every relationship followed the same script. First came the intense connection, then the gradual withdrawal of her partner, followed by abandonment that left her questioning her worth. 3 marriages, countless relationships, and the pattern never changed. What Sarah didn't realize was that she was living out a carefully orchestrated soul contract designed for her spiritual evolution. Before we incarnate into physical form, there's what spiritual teachers call an incubation period, a spiritual roundtable conference where souls gather to plan their upcoming earthly experiences. During this sacred planning phase, your soul collaborates with other souls and receives guidance from spirit guides to determine which lessons you'll learn in the life ahead. These pre-birth agreements aren't random. They're meticulously designed contracts that ensure you encounter specific people, situations, and challenges that will catalyze your spiritual growth. Every person you meet, from the stranger who smiles at you in the elevator to your most difficult family member, has agreed to play a soporific role in your soul's development. The process begins in what's called the causal plane, where souls review their previous lifetimes and identify areas needing further development. Perhaps in past lives, you struggled with forgiveness, so your soul contracts for experiences that will test and develop this quality. Maybe you need to learn independence, so you'll encounter situations where you must stand alone and find your inner strength. These contracts explain why certain relationships feel fated, why you're drawn to specific types of people, and why particular challenges seem to follow you regardless of your conscious efforts to avoid them. Your soul isn't being punished. It's being educated through carefully chosen experiences that serve your highest evolution. What makes soul contracts fascinating is their dual nature. While the framework is predetermined, your response within that framework remains entirely your choice. You can meet your contracted lessons with resistance and suffering, or you can embrace them with awareness and grow through them consciously. Understanding this concept shifts everything. Those repetitive patterns aren't evidence of failure. They're evidence of your soul's determination to help you evolve. Each loop is an opportunity to respond differently, to learn the intended lesson, and to break free from unconscious reactions into conscious growth. Chapter 2. The 4 Types of Soul Agreements. Marcus met Elena at a conference and felt an immediate, inexplicable connection. Within hours, they were finishing each other's sentences. Within weeks, they were planning a future together. But what followed wasn't the fairy tale romance Marcus expected. It was the most challenging relationship of his life, pushing him to confront every insecurity and limitation he'd ever avoided. Marcus had encountered his twin flame contract. Soul contracts manifest in 4 distinct forms, each serving unique purposes in our spiritual development. Understanding these categories helps you recognize which type of agreement you're experiencing and respond appropriately. Karmic contracts form the foundation of our soul's learning system. These agreements involve souls who've shared previous lifetimes and need to balance energies or resolve unfinished business. If you've ever met someone and felt instant dislike or attraction without logical reason, you're likely experiencing a karmic connection. These relationships often feel intense and unavoidable, designed to teach specific lessons about forgiveness, boundaries, or unconditional love. Karmic contracts frequently appear as challenging family dynamics, difficult bosses, or romantic partners who trigger your deepest wounds. The key is recognizing that these individuals aren't villains in your story. They're spiritual teachers wearing human masks, fulfilling agreements made in love to help you grow. Soulmate contracts represent connections formed for mutual support and growth. Unlike popular misconceptions, soulmates aren't necessarily romantic partners. They're souls who've agreed to journey together, supporting each other's evolution through friendship, mentorship, or partnership. These relationships feel comfortable and nurturing, providing safe spaces for exploration and growth. Twin flame contracts create the most intense spiritual connections. Twin flames are essentially two halves of the same soul, incarnated separately to experience individual growth before reuniting. These relationships serve as mirrors, reflecting back every strength and weakness with startling clarity. Twin flame connections often involve periods of separation and reunion, designed to accelerate spiritual development for both individuals. Family contracts shape our earliest experiences and fundamental beliefs about ourselves and the world. These agreements determine which souls will serve as parents, siblings, and extended family members. Family contracts often involve the most challenging lessons because they occur during our most formative years, when we're most vulnerable and impressionable. Each type of contract serves the greater purpose of soul evolution. Karmic contracts clear old debts and patterns. Soulmate contracts provide support and companionship on the journey. Twin flame contracts accelerate spiritual awakening through intense mirroring. Family contracts establish the foundation for lifetime learning. The beauty of understanding these categories lies in shifting your perspective from victim to participant. When you recognize that everyone in your life has agreed to play their role for your mutual benefit, even the most difficult relationships become opportunities for profound transformation. Chapter 3. The Psychology of Repetitive Living. Dr. Jennifer Williams had built a successful therapy practice helping others break free from destructive patterns. Yet her own life felt like a broken record. Every morning brought the same routine, every weekend the same activities, every year the same goals unmet. Despite her professional expertise, she couldn't shake the feeling that life was passing her by in an endless cycle of sameness. The psychological experience of repetitive living stems from several interconnected factors that create the sensation of being trapped in time loops. When our daily experiences lack novelty and challenge, our brains essentially go into autopilot mode, creating fewer distinct memories and making time feel compressed and repetitive. Routine, while providing stability and efficiency, can become a psychological prison when taken to extremes. Your brain craves new stimulation to form memorable experiences. Without sufficient variety, days blend together into an undifferentiated mass of time that feels like it's repeating endlessly. This explains why childhood summers felt eternal, while adult years seem to flash by. Children constantly encounter new experiences, while adults often fall into predictable patterns. Stress and burnout amplify this effect dramatically. When you're operating in survival mode, your perception narrows to immediate concerns, creating tunnel vision that blocks awareness of life's subtle variations and opportunities. Chronic stress floods your system with cortisol, impairing memory formation and making it difficult to distinguish one day from another. Fear of change acts as another powerful force, keeping you locked in repetitive cycles. Even when current patterns feel unsatisfying, they're familiar and therefore perceived as safe by your unconscious mind. The unknown carries potential risks, so your psyche often chooses the discomfort of known patterns over the uncertainty of change. Perhaps most significantly, When life lacks meaning and purpose, every experience feels hollow and repetitive. Without a sense of direction or growth, even objectively different experiences feel the same because they're not contributing to any larger narrative or development in your life. This psychological framework intersects powerfully with the spiritual reality of soul contracts. Your psyche's resistance to change often stems from approaching a significant soul lesson that requires you to step outside your comfort zone. The repetitive feeling isn't just psychological. It's your soul repeatedly presenting the same growth opportunity until you're ready to engage with it consciously. The combination of psychological patterns and spiritual contracts creates what feels like an inescapable loop. Your soul presents a lesson through life circumstances, but psychological resistance causes you to avoid or miss the lesson. So the circumstances repeat with increasing intensity until you finally pay attention. Breaking these loops requires addressing both the psychological and spiritual dimensions simultaneously. You need to understand why your mind craves repetition and safety while also recognizing what your soul is trying to teach you through the patterns. Chapter 4. The Spiritual Purpose of Life Loops. When James lost his third job in 5 years to company downsizing, he felt cursed. Each position started promisingly but ended the same way. Budget cuts, layoffs, and James left scrambling for new employment. It wasn't until his fourth layoff that James began seeing the pattern differently. Each job loss had pushed him closer to his dream of starting his own business, stripping away his dependence on others and forcing him to discover his entrepreneurial spirit. Life loops serve profound spiritual purposes that extend far beyond psychological comfort or habit formation. From a soul perspective, repetitive experiences are carefully designed learning laboratories that continue until you extract their intended wisdom. The spiritual mechanics behind loops operate on the principle that souls incarnate to develop specific qualities and capabilities. Just as a musician practices scales repeatedly to develop mastery, your soul orchestrates repeated experiences to help you master particular spiritual qualities like forgiveness, courage, trust, or unconditional love. These loops create what spiritual teachers call mastery opportunities, situations that test your current level of development and invite growth to the next level. Each repetition offers a chance to respond differently, to apply newly gained wisdom, and to demonstrate spiritual maturity. When you finally master the lesson, the loop naturally dissolves and new growth opportunities emerge. The concept of karma plays a central role in these repetitive patterns. Karma isn't punishment, it's education. Unresolved karmic patterns from previous lifetimes create energetic imprints that attract similar situations in your current life until they're consciously addressed and healed. These patterns repeat across lifetimes because the soul is committed to complete learning, no matter how long it takes. Divine timing orchestrates these repetitive experiences with remarkable precision. Your soul doesn't randomly present lessons. It waits until you have the emotional, mental, and spiritual capacity to potentially succeed. What appears as frustrating repetition is actually perfectly timed curriculum designed for your current developmental stage. Loops also serve to strengthen your spiritual muscles through practice. Just as physical exercise requires repetition to build strength, spiritual development requires repeated opportunities to practice patience, compassion, courage, and wisdom. Each cycle through a pattern offers another chance to respond from a higher consciousness level. The intensity of loops typically increases over time, creating what some call spiritual pressure. This escalating intensity isn't meant to overwhelm you. It's designed to capture your attention and motivate conscious engagement with the lesson. The universe doesn't want you to suffer. It wants you to wake up and participate actively in your growth. Understanding this spiritual framework transforms your relationship with repetitive experiences. Instead of feeling victimized by recurring patterns, you can appreciate them as evidence of your soul's unwavering commitment to your evolution. Each loop becomes a sacred opportunity to demonstrate your spiritual progress and accelerate your development. Chapter 5. Recognizing your soul contracts in action, Maria had always been drawn to wounded men who needed rescuing. Her first husband battled addiction, her second struggled with depression, and her current relationship involved a man with severe trust issues stemming from childhood trauma. The details changed, but the core dynamic remained identical. Maria playing healer to a damaged partner who ultimately left when the relationship demanded too much emotional intimacy. Recognizing your soul contracts requires developing awareness of the patterns that weave through your life like golden threads connecting seemingly separate experiences. These contracts announce themselves through specific signals that become unmistakable once you know what to look for. Recurring relationship dynamics form the most obvious signature of active soul contracts. Pay attention to the roles you consistently play in relationships: the rescuer, the victim, the rebel, the peacemaker. Notice the types of people you attract and the similar ways these relationships unfold, regardless of different personalities or circumstances involved. These patterns extend beyond romantic relationships to include friendships, work relationships, and family dynamics. If you consistently find yourself in similar conflicts with authority figures, repeatedly attracting needy friends, or always becoming the family mediator, you're witnessing soul contracts in action. Emotional intensity provides another crucial indicator of soul contract activation. When your emotional response to a person or situation feels disproportionate to the actual circumstances, you're likely encountering a pre-planned spiritual lesson. These intense reactions, whether attraction, repulsion, anger, or inexplicable sadness, signal that your soul recognizes something significant happening. Timing patterns offer additional clues about active contracts. Notice when significant people enter your life and the circumstances surrounding these meetings. Soul contract connections often occur at pivotal moments, during transitions, crises, or periods of spiritual seeking. The synchronicities surrounding these encounters feel too meaningful to be coincidental because they aren't random. They're orchestrated. 5. Repetitive life themes provide broader evidence of soul contracts at work. Perhaps every few years you face a crisis that tests your ability to trust others. Maybe you repeatedly encounter situations that challenge your self-worth or push you to speak your truth. These recurring themes represent core curriculum your soul has contracted to master this lifetime. Physical sensations can also signal contract recognition. Many people report feeling immediate familiarity with certain individuals, as if they've known them forever despite just meeting. Others experience physical reactions, heart racing, energy shifts, or unexplained emotions when encountering someone significant to their soul's journey. Geographic patterns matter too. If you find yourself repeatedly drawn to specific places or consistently encountering life-changing events in similar locations, these patterns may reflect soul contracts connected to particular energetic environments or past life connections. The key to recognition lies in stepping back from immediate circumstances to observe larger patterns across time. Keep a journal tracking significant relationships, major life events, and emotional patterns. Over time, the threads connecting these experiences will become visible, revealing the masterful orchestration of your soul's educational plan. Once you recognize these patterns, you gain the power to engage with them consciously rather than unconsciously repeating the same responses. Recognition transforms you from an unconscious participant to a conscious co-creator in your soul's evolution. Chapter 6. Breaking Free from Negative Patterns. Rebecca had been in therapy for 3 years, trying to understand why she kept choosing men who emotionally withdrew from her. She'd analyzed her childhood, explored her attachment style, and practiced new communication techniques, yet the pattern persisted. It wasn't until she learned about soul contracts that everything clicked. The pattern would continue until she stopped trying to fix others and started developing her own emotional independence. Her breakthrough came when she realized she didn't need to escape the pattern. She needed to respond to it differently. Breaking free from destructive loops doesn't mean avoiding the experiences your soul has contracted to encounter. Instead, it means engaging with these experiences from a place of consciousness rather than unconscious reaction. The goal isn't to eliminate challenges, but to transform your relationship with them. The first step involves developing what psychologists call metacognition, awareness of your own thought patterns and behavioral responses. Most people operate on autopilot, unconsciously repeating the same reactions to familiar triggers. When your boss criticizes your work, you might automatically become defensive. When your partner seems distant, you might immediately assume rejection. These automatic responses perpetuate loops because they don't allow space for new outcomes. Pattern interruption techniques create crucial gaps between stimulus and response. The moment you notice a familiar trigger, pause and take 3 deep breaths before reacting. This simple technique activates your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for conscious decision-making, rather than your limbic system, which drives automatic emotional responses. Physical movement also interrupts automatic patterns effectively. When you feel anger rising, try walking around the block before responding. When anxiety kicks in, do jumping jacks or stretch. Physical activity shifts your neurochemical state and provides perspective that's impossible to access while caught in emotional reactivity. Conscious choice represents your greatest power within predetermined soul contracts. While you can't control which lessons appear in your life, you have complete authority over how you respond to them. This might mean setting boundaries with family members instead of enabling dysfunction, speaking up in meetings instead of remaining silent, or asking for help instead of suffering alone. The practice of conscious choice requires developing a personal mission statement that guides decision-making. Ask yourself, who do I want to become through this experience? If your soul contract involves learning self-respect, choose responses that honor your worth. If you're learning compassion, choose responses that extend understanding to others while maintaining healthy boundaries. Forgiveness serves as perhaps the most powerful tool for completing karmic cycles and breaking free from repetitive patterns. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior or allowing abuse to continue. It means releasing the energetic charge that keeps you tied to past wounds and repetitive dynamics. True forgiveness often requires understanding the soul-level agreements involved in challenging relationships. The person who betrayed your trust may have agreed to teach you discernment. The parent who was emotionally unavailable might have contracted to help you develop inner strength. This perspective doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it allows you to extract the spiritual gift and release resentment. The forgiveness process begins with forgiving yourself for unconsciously participating in destructive patterns. Many people carry shame about repeatedly making similar mistakes or attracting similar problems. Self-forgiveness recognizes that you are doing the best you could with your current level of consciousness and that every experience contributed to your growth. Creating new neural pathways requires consistent, intentional action that contradicts old patterns. If you typically people-please, practice saying no to small requests. If you usually isolate when hurt, try reaching out to a trusted friend. If you historically avoid conflict, practice expressing disagreement respectfully. Neuroscientists have discovered that repetitive new behaviors literally rewire the brain, creating fresh neural highways that make conscious responses more automatic over time. The key is starting small and building gradually. Trying to change everything at once usually leads to overwhelm and return to familiar patterns. Visualization accelerates neural pathway creation by providing mental rehearsal for new responses. Spend 10 minutes daily imagining yourself responding consciously to typical triggers. See yourself remaining calm during criticism, setting boundaries with difficult people, or speaking your truth in challenging situations. The brain doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and actual ones, so mental practice strengthens new behavioral patterns. Environmental changes support new neural pathways by eliminating triggers for old patterns. If you always argue with your spouse in the kitchen, have important conversations in a different room. If you compulsively check social media at your desk, move your phone to another room while working. These environmental modifications reduce automatic triggering of unwanted behaviors. Sometimes our current loops are influenced by agreements made in previous lifetimes. Let's explore this deeper dimension. Chapter 7. Past life influences on current loops. Thomas had an inexplicable fear of water that made no sense given his current life experiences. He'd never had a drowning incident, came from a loving family, and lived nowhere near large bodies of water. Yet the sight of deep water triggered panic attacks that seemed completely irrational. Through past life regression, Thomas discovered he drowned in a previous incarnation after making a vow to never trust others with his safety. This ancient vow was creating patterns of extreme self-reliance and isolation in his current life. Past life contracts and vows often remain energetically active across incarnations, creating persistent patterns that seem to have no origin in your current lifetime. Understanding these deeper influences provides crucial insight into why certain loops feel so deeply ingrained and resistant to conventional healing approaches. Soul memory operates differently than conscious memory. While your conscious mind remembers experiences from this lifetime, your soul retains impressions and agreements from all incarnations. These soul memories influence current behavior through energetic imprints that create attraction to certain experiences and repulsion from others. Vows made in previous lifetimes carry particular power because they represent solemn commitments made during intense emotional states. A medieval monk might have vowed poverty to serve God, creating financial struggles in future incarnations. A woman betrayed by her husband might have sworn never to trust men again, affecting romantic relationships across lifetimes. A soldier might have promised to always protect others, leading to chronic over-responsibility and burnout. These vows were often appropriate for their original context, but become limiting when carried into different circumstances. The monk's poverty vow served spiritual development in a monastery, but creates unnecessary struggle in modern life. The woman's vow of distrust protected her from further betrayal, but prevents healthy, intimate relationships. The soldier's protective vow honored his service, but leads to exhaustion when applied to civilian life. Identifying past life influences requires looking for patterns that seem disproportionate to current life experiences. Phobias without obvious causes often trace to past life trauma. Instant connections or aversions to certain people, places, or time periods may reflect soul memories. Unusual skills or knowledge that seem to come naturally might indicate abilities developed in previous incarnations. Persistent relationship patterns that resist healing despite sincere effort often have past life components. If you consistently attract partners who abandon you despite having loving parents and no abandonment trauma in this life, you might be dealing with soul memories of betrayal from previous relationships across lifetimes. Dreams provide another avenue for accessing past life information. Vivid dreams set in historical periods, featuring unfamiliar but detailed settings, or involving intense emotions without current life context, may be soul memories surfacing for healing. Keep a dream journal and notice recurring themes that don't relate to your current experiences. The process of clearing outdated spiritual agreements begins with recognition and acknowledgement. You can formally revoke vows that no longer serve your highest good through conscious intention and ceremony. Many people find it helpful to speak aloud. I revoke any vows or agreements I've made in this or any lifetime that prevent me from experiencing prosperity, healthy relationships, or spiritual freedom. Past life regression therapy offers a more thorough approach to clearing old contracts and trauma. Working with trained practitioners, you can access specific memories and understand how past experiences influence current patterns. This understanding often provides immediate relief as you realize current struggles aren't personal failures, but natural results of ancient agreements. Forgiveness work becomes especially important when dealing with past life trauma. You may need to forgive those who hurt you in previous incarnations, Forgive yourself for choices that created karma, and forgive the circumstances that led to limiting vows. This forgiveness doesn't happen in one session. It's an ongoing process that deepens over time. Energy healing modalities like Reiki, acupuncture, or chakra balancing can help clear past life imprints stored in your energy field. Many practitioners specialize in past life healing and can identify and clear energetic blocks that originated in previous incarnations. Working with past life influences requires patience and self-compassion. These patterns developed over multiple lifetimes and won't disappear overnight. However, conscious awareness dramatically accelerates healing. Once you understand why certain patterns exist, you can work with them more skillfully rather than fighting against mysterious forces. This raises a profound question about the nature of choice itself. Are we bound by fate or empowered by free will? Chapter 8. Free Will versus Divine Timing. Dr. Lisa Chun stood at a crossroads that would define her career. She'd been offered a prestigious position at a major hospital, the culmination of years of medical training. But something deep inside pulled her toward alternative healing practices that her scientific background deemed and proven. The conflict felt predetermined, as if her soul had orchestrated this exact choice between conventional success and spiritual calling. Her decision would demonstrate whether soul contracts represent fate or simply provide the framework within which free will operates. The relationship between predetermination and free will represents one of spirituality's greatest paradoxes. Soul contracts appear to create predetermined experiences, yet we maintain complete freedom in how we respond to those experiences. Understanding this paradox transforms your relationship with challenging circumstances and empowers conscious participation in your spiritual evolution. Divine timing orchestrates when contract lessons appear, but your consciousness level determines how you'll experience them. Two people might face identical circumstances, job loss, relationship betrayal, or health challenges, yet have completely different experiences based on their awareness and responses. One person experiences victimization and suffering while another recognizes opportunity for growth and transformation. Your level of consciousness acts like a lens that filters and interprets contractual experiences. Operating from victim consciousness, you experience soul contracts as random misfortune requiring endurance. Approaching from empowered consciousness, you recognize these same experiences as purposeful curriculum designed for your evolution. Victim consciousness creates suffering through resistance to what's appearing in your life. You spend energy fighting circumstances, blaming others, and wishing things were different. This resistance doesn't change what you're experiencing, but adds layers of emotional pain to necessary lessons. Empowered consciousness embraces what appears while maintaining choice about your responses. You ask, "What is this teaching me?" instead of "Why is this happening to me?" This shift in perspective immediately creates new possibilities for growth and healing within challenging circumstances. Present moment awareness represents your greatest tool for transforming soul contract from fate into conscious growth opportunities. Most people live in past regrets or future anxieties, missing the choice points available in each moment. Soul contracts unfold through present moment encounters, conversations, decisions, and responses that shape your trajectory. Developing present moment awareness begins with mindfulness meditation. Even 5 minutes daily of focused attention on your breath builds the mental muscle of presence. This capacity for sustained attention allows you to notice choice points that would otherwise pass unconsciously. The practice of conscious breathing throughout the day anchors you in present moment awareness during challenging situations. When triggered by familiar patterns, take 3 conscious breaths before responding. This pause creates space for choice rather than automatic reaction. Accepting predetermined frameworks while exercising free will requires understanding the difference between what you can and cannot control. You cannot control which lessons your soul has contracted to learn, when they'll appear, or which people will serve as teachers. You can control your attitude, responses, and the meaning you create from these experiences. This acceptance doesn't mean passive resignation. It means recognizing that your greatest power lies in conscious response rather than circumstance control. You become like a skilled sailor who cannot control wind direction, but can adjust sails to reach any desired destination. Balancing acceptance with proactive change requires discernment about when to surrender and when to take action. Sometimes your soul contract requires accepting difficult circumstances that cannot be changed, illness, loss, or other choices. Other times, your lesson involves taking action despite fear or discomfort, leaving unhealthy relationships, changing careers, or speaking difficult truths. Developing this discernment involves tuning into your intuitive guidance while using practical wisdom. Meditation, journaling, and consultation with trusted advisors help clarify when circumstances require acceptance versus action. Generally, if you feel called to act despite fear, action is probably required. If you feel peaceful about accepting challenging circumstances, surrender may be appropriate. The paradox resolves when you realize that soul contracts provide the curriculum but never dictate specific responses. Your soul might contract to learn patience through difficult relationships, but how you develop patience remains your choice. You might learn through accepting others' limitations, setting firmer boundaries, or finding peace within conflict. Understanding this paradox eliminates the helplessness often associated with spiritual concepts like karma or fate. You're not trapped by past decisions or predetermined circumstances. Every moment offers fresh opportunities to choose responses that serve your highest evolution. With this understanding of choice within structure, we can now learn to transform our loops into conscious growth. Chapter 9. Transforming Loops into Conscious Growth. Michael had been fired from 4 different corporate jobs for speaking up about unethical practices. Each termination felt like punishment for doing the right thing, leaving him questioning whether integrity was worth the professional cost. But his spiritual mentor offered a revolutionary perspective. What if these experiences aren't setbacks, but preparation? What if your soul is developing the courage and moral clarity needed for a leadership role where integrity will be essential? This reframe transformed Michael's relationship with his pattern from victimization to empowered preparation. The ultimate goal of understanding soul contracts isn't to escape all patterns, but to engage with them consciously, extracting intended wisdom while maintaining personal sovereignty. This transformation from unconscious suffering to conscious growth represents the true mastery of spiritual evolution. Shifting from victim to conscious participant requires a fundamental change in your identity and relationship with challenging experiences. Victims experience life as something that happens to them, while conscious participants recognize themselves as active collaborators in their spiritual education. This shift begins with changing your internal narrative about repetitive experiences. Instead of thinking, "This always happens to me," try, "This pattern is providing another opportunity for growth." Instead of, "I can't believe this is happening again," consider, "I'm being given another chance to respond differently." Language shapes perception powerfully. Notice how you describe your experiences to others and yourself. Victim language includes words like stuck, trapped, always, and never. Empowered language uses phrases like learning, growing, developing, and practicing. This linguistic shift reflects and reinforces a new relationship with your circumstances. Meditation and introspection provide direct access to contract wisdom that exists beyond rational analysis. During quiet reflection, you can receive insights about why certain patterns appear in your life and what they're designed to teach you. This inner guidance often provides clarity that external analysis cannot offer. Establishing a regular meditation practice doesn't require hours of sitting. Even 10 minutes of quiet reflection daily creates space for spiritual insights to emerge. During meditation, focus on current life patterns and ask for understanding about their deeper purpose. Trust whatever information arises, even if it challenges your current perspective. Journaling amplifies meditation benefits by capturing insights that might otherwise fade from memory. Write about recurring patterns, challenging relationships, and spiritual insights without censoring or editing. Often, the act of writing reveals connections and meanings that weren't apparent during the initial experience. The art of completing contracts with grace and gratitude represents spiritual mastery. Most people resist and resent challenging experiences until circumstances force resolution. Conscious participants recognize when patterns have served their purpose and ceremonially release them with appreciation for their teachings. Contract completion often involves forgiveness of yourself for unconscious participation, of others for playing difficult roles, and of circumstances for being challenging. This forgiveness doesn't condone harmful behavior, but acknowledges the spiritual service these experiences provided for your growth. Gratitude practices accelerate contract completion by shifting your energetic relationship with difficult experiences. Daily gratitude for challenging people and situations, recognizing their contribution to your spiritual development, often dissolves patterns more quickly than resistance or anger. Creating space for new experiences within existing patterns requires releasing attachment to specific outcomes while remaining open to unexpected possibilities. You might continue encountering similar types of people or situations, but your conscious engagement creates entirely different experiences within familiar frameworks. This spaciousness emerges when you stop needing circumstances to be different and start focusing on becoming different within circumstances. The external pattern might remain consistent while your internal experience transforms completely. Developing spiritual discernment helps you recognize when contracts are complete versus when they require continued engagement. Complete contracts feel peaceful even when circumstances remain challenging. Incomplete contracts carry emotional charge and trigger reactive responses that signal ongoing learning opportunities. Celebrating spiritual victories, no matter how small, reinforces your progress and motivates continued growth. Notice when you respond differently to familiar triggers, when old patterns lose their emotional charge, or when you maintain peace during previously stressful situations. These victories deserve acknowledgement and appreciation. Working with soul contracts also means developing patience with divine timing. Your ego might want patterns to resolve immediately, but your soul understands that deep transformation requires time and repetition. Trust the process while maintaining commitment to conscious growth. Building a support network of spiritually aware individuals provides encouragement and perspective during challenging contract work. Surround yourself with people who understand spiritual growth principles and can reflect your progress when you can't see it yourself. As we conclude our journey, let's look at how to create conscious agreements for your continued evolution. Chapter 10: Creating Conscious Soul Agreements. Maria discovered that her soul's deepest desire was to help heal ancestral trauma patterns that had affected her family line for generations. This awareness came during a meditation retreat where she realized her difficult childhood hadn't been random suffering but preparation for her spiritual mission. With this understanding, she began consciously collaborating with her soul's purpose, setting intentions for relationships and experiences that would support this healing work rather than simply enduring whatever appeared. Once you understand how soul contracts operate, you can participate more consciously in creating agreements that serve your highest growth while minimizing unnecessary suffering. This collaboration between your conscious mind and soul wisdom represents advanced spiritual practice that accelerates evolution while honoring your human experience. Setting intentions for future soul contracts begins with clarifying your spiritual goals and desires for growth. Spend time in quiet reflection considering what qualities you want to develop, what service you feel called to provide, and how you want to contribute to the world's healing. These intentions become the foundation for conscious contract creation. Conscious intention setting differs from wishful thinking or goal setting. It involves aligning your human desires with your soul's evolutionary path. While your ego might want comfort and ease, your soul seeks experiences that foster growth and service. Conscious intentions honor both aspects by requesting growth opportunities that stretch you without overwhelming you. The process of conscious prayer and meditation in spiritual planning connects you directly with your soul's wisdom and guidance. Regular communication with your higher self through prayer or meditation creates ongoing dialogue about your spiritual path and preferred learning methods. During these conversations, you can request specific types of experiences while remaining open to how they manifest. You might ask for opportunities to develop courage while specifying that you prefer challenges you can handle rather than overwhelming ordeals. You might request lessons in patience while asking for teachers who are firm but kind rather than cruel. This conscious participation doesn't guarantee life will become easy, but often makes challenges more manageable and purposeful. When you're consciously collaborating with your spiritual evolution, difficulties feel like chosen assignments rather than random misfortune. Working with spiritual guides in contract formation acknowledges that you're not alone in planning your spiritual journey. Whether you call them angels, guides, higher self, or divine wisdom, these non-physical helpers assist in creating learning experiences that serve your highest good. Developing a relationship with spiritual guidance requires regular practice and trust in subtle communications. These guides rarely speak in dramatic ways, but offer gentle impressions, repeated thoughts, synchronicities, and intuitive knowings that guide decision-making. Learning to distinguish true spiritual guidance from ego desires takes practice and discernment. Spiritual guidance usually feels peaceful, expansive, and aligned with love and service. Ego desires often carry anxiety, urgency, or focus on personal gain at others' expense. Maintaining awareness of soul purposes in daily decisions transforms ordinary choices into spiritual practice. When deciding about relationships, career moves, living situations, or daily activities, consider how each option supports or hinders your spiritual growth and service. This doesn't mean avoiding pleasure or making life unnecessarily difficult. It means choosing options that feel aligned with your deepest values and spiritual direction rather than defaulting to convenience or social expectations. Creating conscious agreements also involves setting energetic boundaries around what types of experiences you're willing to accept for growth. You can specify that you want to learn through love rather than fear, through inspiration rather than desperation, and through gentle challenges rather than traumatic events. The key to conscious contract creation lies in balancing surrender with intention. You remain open to your soul's wisdom while expressing preferences about how lessons might unfold. This collaboration honors both your human need for safety and your soul's commitment to growth. Regular review and adjustment of conscious intentions ensures they remain aligned with your evolving understanding and circumstances. What seemed important for growth at one stage might become irrelevant as you develop. Stay flexible and willing to update your intentions as you grow. Remember that conscious contract creation is an ongoing process rather than a one-time decision. Your spiritual evolution continues throughout life, requiring periodic reassessment of goals, methods, and intentions. Embrace this fluidity as part of the beautiful dance between human consciousness and soul wisdom. We've journeyed together through the profound landscape of soul contracts and time loops, discovering how repetitive experiences serve your spiritual evolution rather than representing random misfortune. Through understanding these deeper patterns, you've gained tools to transform unconscious suffering into conscious growth. Soul contracts create repetitive experiences for spiritual growth, not punishment. Every challenging person, difficult situation, and persistent pattern serves your highest evolution. The parent who was critical helped you develop inner validation. The partner who betrayed your trust taught you discernment. The boss who micromanaged forced you to find your voice. These experiences weren't cosmic accidents, but carefully orchestrated opportunities for development. Recognition of patterns empowers conscious participation rather than unconscious suffering. When you see repetitive experiences as spiritual curriculum rather than personal failure, everything shifts. You become an active collaborator in your growth rather than a passive victim of circumstances. You start asking, what is this teaching me? Instead of, why is this happening to me? Free will operates within the framework of soul agreements. While you cannot control which lessons appear or when they manifest, you have complete choice about how you respond. You can meet challenges with resistance and resentment, or you can embrace them with awareness and willingness to grow. The curriculum remains consistent, but your experience within it transforms completely. Transformation comes through engagement, not escape. The goal isn't to avoid all difficulties, but to meet them consciously. When you engage with soul contract from awareness rather than unconsciousness, patterns often resolve more quickly and gracefully. Resistance prolongs lessons while acceptance accelerates completion. Starting today, observe your life patterns with curiosity rather than frustration. Ask yourself, what is this loop trying to teach me? Journal about recurring themes in your relationships, career, and personal challenges. Notice when similar situations appear and practice responding differently than you have in the past. Practice forgiveness for repeated challenges, recognizing that difficult people and situations have served your growth even when their behavior was unacceptable. This forgiveness doesn't condone harm, but acknowledges the spiritual gifts hidden within challenging experiences. Set intentions for conscious growth within your contracts. Instead of trying to escape patterns, ask for awareness to work with them skillfully. Request growth opportunities that stretch you without overwhelming you. Collaborate with your soul's wisdom while honoring your human needs for safety and support. Remember, awareness is the first step toward transformation. Your willingness to understand these deeper patterns already begins to shift them. Trust the process, honor the journey, and know that every loop brings you closer to spiritual mastery. You're not stuck. You're exactly where your soul needs you to be for your next level of growth. The patterns that once felt like prisons become doorways to freedom when viewed through the lens of spiritual understanding. Your repetitive experiences aren't evidence of failure, but evidence of your soul's unwavering commitment to your evolution. Embrace this truth and watch how your entire relationship with life's challenges transforms. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of time loops and soul contracts. If this audiobook has provided valuable insights for your spiritual journey, please subscribe to Audiobooks Library for more transformative content that bridges ancient wisdom with modern understanding. Until then, remember, you're not stuck. You are exactly where your soul needs you to be for your next level of growth.